I have already dealt with the subject of integration of states and how the entire country became unified and all the states, the princely states, gave up its rulership and became part of the dominion of India and later on accepted the constitution and India became one entity, a one country. Now, the Privy Purse was a constitutional guarantee given to these princely purses by way of Article 291 under the Constitution. Now, in the year 1970, the government of that day believed that the Privy Purse was a heavy burden on the exchequer, as every year a payment of rupees 58 crores was to be made to these princely states. Now, this Privy Purse in 70s was not fulfilling any social purpose, or was not in accordance with the social order, and was an antiquated and outdated concept. So the government in the year 1970 brings a 24th Constitution Amendment Bill in the Lok Sabha to delete Article 291 and 366 Clause 22, which gave the constitutional guarantee of Privy Purse. Now, on 2nd September of 1970, the Lok Sabha clears this constitutional amendment bill by voting in favor of the said bill. On 5th of September 1970, the said bill is brought before the Rajya Sabha, and there are 224 members present for voting. And under Article 368, the requisite majority which is required for clearing the amendment to the Constitution is 2/3 of the members present and voting. So it required 150 votes in order to clear the said bill. However, only 149 voted for and 75 voted against it, and therefore by one vote the said bill came to be rejected. On 5th September, since the bill was rejected, the cabinet met and consulted the president, and a presidential order was passed on 5th September 1970, de-recognizing all the rulers, all the princely states as being rulers, and therefore taking away their privileges, rights, guarantees under the covenant and the Privy Purse. The order, signed and under the name of the president, read that in exercise of the powers vested in him under Article 366 Clause 22 of the Constitution, the President hereby directs that with effect from the date of this order, His Highness Maharaja the Raja Madhavrao Jivaji Rao Scindia do cease to be recognized as the ruler of Gwalior. Similar orders were communicated to all other rulers in India who had been previously recognized under Article 366 Clause 22 of the Constitution. It is because of this order that several petitions were filed under Article 32 of the Constitution by these princes to enforce their fundamental rights and for the central government to comply with the solemn constitutional guarantee. Now, it is important to understand a couple of constitutional provisions which were at that time in the Constitution. Were Article 366 Clause 22, which defined a ruler, which meant a prince or a chief with whom the covenant or agreement was entered by the Dominion of India, as referred in Article 291, and who for the time being was recognized by the President as the ruler of the state. Article 291 provided for the constitutional guarantee to the rulers to receive the sum of Privy Purse, which shall be charged on and paid out of the Consolidated Fund of India. Article 362 strengthened the constitutional guarantee by providing that the Parliament or state legislature or the executive of the Union or the state shall give due regard in exercise of law-making powers to the guarantees mentioned under Article 291 of the Constitution. The most important article for interpretation before the Supreme Court was Article 363, which bars the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court or any other court to enter upon the dispute with regards to any dispute arising out of any provisions of covenant or instruments of accession or merger entered with the Dominion of India before the commencement of the Constitution. or in any dispute of any right arising out of any provisions of this constitution relating to such agreement, covenant, or instrument. So, therefore, the princes had three obstacles before the princes could convince the Supreme Court with regards to their petition. The first was to show that there was a violation of the fundamental rights of the rulers in order to enforce it under Article 32. The second obstacle was that if there is a violation of the fundamental rights, then does the Supreme Court have the jurisdiction to enter upon the dispute arising out of the covenants and agreements entered prior to the commencement of the Constitution, or with regards to the guarantee given under Article 291 because of the specific bar under Article 363. Third, if Supreme Court's jurisdiction is not barred, then does it confer on the President power to abolish rulership? And are the impugned orders invalid for violation of Article 291 and 362 of the Constitution? With respect to the first obstacle, with regards to the violation of fundamental rights, the Supreme Court first interprets Article 291 and holds that the privy purse is a political pension guaranteed to these princely rulers. Now, the Supreme Court in its earlier decisions had held that pension and cash grants were regarded as property. Privy purse being a political pension was an intangible property and therefore was a fundamental right guaranteed under Article 19(1)(f). The Supreme Court explained that if pension is stopped, there is an established credit debt and the outstanding pension becomes the property of the pensioner in the hands of government. Privy purse is also a sum certain and absolutely payable. The words of Article 291 are shall be charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund. The article makes the payment obligatory. Therefore, the article, in addition to the source and manner, also lays down that it shall be paid and paid free of taxes on income to the ruler. The article does not only create a liability but also a right in the ruler. Applying these tests to the privy purses, it was held that it would be a property and therefore violation of privy purse or an abolition of privy purse would be a violation of Article 19(1)(f) and Article 31, as no compensation is provided which is required under Article 31 Clause 2 of the Constitution. So therefore the petitioners could clear the first hurdle of establishing that there was a violation of fundamental rights. The second obstacle was with regards to the scope and jurisdiction of the Supreme Court with regards to the dispute about the covenants and agreements entered before the commencement of the Constitution and the rights that it created under the Constitution, as it was barred under Article 363. So, Article 363 declared that the courts have no jurisdiction in respect of the two classes of disputes. First, a dispute arising out of the covenant, which falls within the first limb of Article 363, and a dispute with regard to a right accruing or obligation arising out of a provision of the Constitution relating to a covenant falls within the second limb of Article 363. The Supreme Court interpreting Article 363 holds, it is a well-known rule of interpretation that provisions barring the jurisdiction of civil courts must be strictly construed for the exclusion of the jurisdiction of a civil court, and least of all the Supreme Court is not to be lightly inferred. The court will interpret a statute as far as possible, agreeably to justice and reason, and that in case of two or more interpretations, one which is more reasonable and just will be adopted, for there is always a presumption against the lawmaker intending injustice and unreason. The Supreme Court holds that since the right to the privy purse arises under Article 291, the dispute in respect of which does not fall within the either clauses under Article 363 and the jurisdiction of the court is not excluded. Further, the Supreme Court holds that if Article 291 guaranteed the payment and created an obligation upon the Union irrespective of the covenants, as the covenants spoke about the privy purse to be paid from the state revenues. However, the Constitution charged it upon the Consolidated Fund of India to be paid by the Union government. So the Supreme Court held that Article 291 created a separate and distinct right, and it was not a right arising out or under the covenant or the agreements to accession or merger. The Supreme Court held that there was no purpose in guaranteeing the payment of privy purses under Article 291 and then taking away the right to recover them under Article 363. It is not easy to accept the contention that what was an enforceable right was made unenforceable under the Constitution. The Supreme Court observed that the dispute at hand was not arising out of any covenant or any right under the Constitution as to create an embargo under Article 363. But the question was whether the order of an executive body is authorized and ultra vires. So the question was with regards to the power of the President to abolish the privy purse exercising his power under Article 366 clause 22. Since the majority held that there was violation of fundamental rights and the Supreme Court had jurisdiction to entertain the dispute, the third issue which was to be decided was whether the President had the power to de-recognize the princes under Article 366 clause 22 and whether it was ultra vires and whether it can be declared to be void and illegal. The Supreme Court analyzed the provisions of the Constitution with regards to the power of the President under Article 53, which provided that the executive power shall be vested in the President and it has to be exercised in accordance with the Constitution. So that power of the President is intended to be exercised in aid of and not to destroy constitutional institutions. Article 366 clause 22 is a definition clause. It invests the President with authority to recognize a person as a ruler. The power to nullify important provisions of the Constitution does not flow from that clause, as if the rulers are de-recognized without deleting Article 291. The order would be violative of Article 291 as 291 still prescribes the government to pay the privy purse out of the consolidated fund, and therefore till 291 was in the Constitution, the President could not de-recognize these privy purses to the princes. The Supreme Court held that the power of the President is plainly coupled with a duty to maintain the constitutional institution, the constitutional provisions, the constitutional scheme, and the sanctity of solemn agreements entered into by the predecessor of the Union government, which are accepted, recognized, and incorporated in the Constitution. An order merely de-recognizing a ruler without providing for continuation of the institution of rulership, which is an integral part of the constitutional scheme, is therefore plainly illegal. The Constitution in terms recognizes and accepts the obligation of the Union to pay the privy purse to the rulers. The words clearly raise an obligation to the Union to pay the privy purse. After the Constitution, the obligation to pay the privy purse rested upon the Union of India, not because it was inherited from the Dominion of India, but because of the constitutional mandate under Article 291. The Supreme Court ultimately held that the President is not invested with any political power transcending the Constitution, which he may exercise to the prejudice of citizens. The powers of the President arise from and are defined by the Constitution. The validity of the exercise of those powers is always amenable to the jurisdiction of the courts, unless the jurisdiction is by precise enactment excluded. Power of this court under Article 32 or of the High Courts under Article 226 cannot be bypassed under a claim that the President has exercised political power. And therefore, the Supreme Court ultimately declares the presidential order abolishing the privy purse as illegal, void, and ultra vires the Constitution. This is one of the most important judgments in the development of constitutional law. It raises some very important questions about the powers of the President, how the Supreme Court at that time interpreted the provisions of the Constitution with regards to the powers of the President and also with regards to the institution of rulership, which was guaranteed under the Constitution under Article 291. It also explains the entire process of the integration of states into one country, that is India, It's a very interesting judgment of the Supreme Court delivered by 11 judges by a majority of 9 against 2, holding the presidential order to be void.